Persian War began during 492 BCE and lasted until around 449 BCE. Now, let's put that into perspective. The Vietnam War? American troops were in Vietnam for 18 years. World War II? 6 years. World War I? Even less, only 4 years. The title Persian War refers to all of the battles fought between Persia and Greece in a span of nearly 50 years. So who exactly was involved in the Persian War? It all began when Darius I made the decision to attack and conquer Greece, and looking at just how long this war was, it's obvious that Greece put up quite the fight. In fact, the fight lasted so long that Darius I died due to complications from old age, and his son, Xerxes I, had to take over. On the Greek side, hoplites, who were the foot soldiers of the individual city-states, fought the Persian soldiers in both land and naval battles. Land battles during this time required significant military strategy on both sides, and a key land battle during this war was the Battle of Thermopylae in around 480 BCE. This may sound familiar to some of you as the basis of the movie 300, in which 300 Greek soldiers, fighting under King Leonidas of Sparta, managed to hold off anywhere from 100,000 to 150,000 Persian soldiers for 3 days. To better wrap your mind around the magnitude of these numbers, imagine the entire population of Hartford, Connecticut, fighting the maximum capacity of an Applebee's. This battle was a major turning point in the Persian War because it restored the Greeks' faith in the fight against the Persians and boosted morale within the Greek ranks. Although the Persians won the battle, the determination of the Greeks was a major factor in their victory in the end. A major naval battle during the Persian War was the Battle of Salamis, also in 480 BCE. This was between the forces of Xerxes I and the navy of an alliance of Greek city-states. Greeks were extremely skilled at sea battle with their invention of trireme ships that had a flat deck perfect for man-to-man combat. The Greek victory over the Persians ensured that the Persians would not conquer the Peloponnese, which was a key area of Greece that contained Sparta and other key city-states. This led to a dramatic drop in the prestige of the Persian army and gave more confidence to the Greek army. The Peloponnesian War was between the forces of the Athenian Empire, aka the Delian League, and the Peloponnesian League of Sparta, and actually includes 2 different wars between the same people. The First Peloponnesian War began after mounting tensions between the 2 parts of Greece, due to aggressive trade, clash of political views, and even rivalry in sporting events such as the Olympics. A key battle during the war was the Sicilian expedition, led by Athenian politician Alcibiades. A master of persuasive speech, he advocated for this costly and risky crusade against Sparta, and managed to receive the support to follow through with it. His political rival, Nicias, strongly opposed this proposal, accurately predicting it to be a failure, but was a general in it anyway, so as not to be a traitor to Athens. This battle marked the beginning of the end for Athens, depleting it of its money and its resources. Another key event during this time was the military strategy to block off the major port in Athens and build a wall around it to protect it from invaders. However, Athenians did not realize that this would cut them off from the retrieval of more resources, which led to a massive loss of life due to starvation. This also squeezed a very large population for the time into a really small space, causing a plague to break out, which took the lives of anywhere from 1/3 to 2/3 of the entire population, including Pericles, who was a very prominent leader at the time. With the Athenians defeated, depleted of money and resources, and suffering a massive loss of population, Spartans saw this as a chance to take over, establishing a tyrannical government within Athens that favored pro-Spartan ideals. This time in history saw a major rise in the arts, architecture, and technology. Massive buildings were erected to honor the gods, including the Parthenon at Acropolis. This building, funded by Pericles, was the treasury of Athens, as well as the place where the Delian League met to discuss politics. It was also a cultural center. Citizens would meet on the porch or on the steps to discuss business, politics, and philosophy. It was, as was the entire city, dedicated to Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, which were in many ways connected. Some of the most advanced technological feats of the ancient Greeks stemmed from their need for more cutting-edge military technology. One of the most important inventions was that of the trireme ship, which, as already discussed, was used for naval battle. These ships had 3 banks of oars and needed up to 170 men to row. These banks of oars sat low, and on top of them, there was a flat deck for Greek hoplites, or skilled soldiers, to fight on. These ships also had ramming capabilities, which could sink other attacking ships. This revolutionized the way war was fought, and Greeks began to focus more on their navy than their military. Another technological advance was the military formation called the phalanx. Greek hoplites would carry spears, the first row's spears being the shortest, the next rows being long enough to be in line with the first, and the next rows long enough to be in line with the first as well, meaning that there were 3 times the spears of a normal battle formation. This made for quicker defeat and helped Greeks to beat opponents that far outnumbered them. The social structure of ancient Greece was very different than our social structure today. At the top of the social hierarchy was gods. These beings were considered divine and completely separate from man based on 3 codes, the main one being the alimentary code, or the diet. Gods dined on raw foods made only for them, called ambrosia and nectar. This separated them from man, who dined on cooked foods, and beasts, who ate raw foods like raw meat and plants. Gods also did not practice agriculture, which separated them from man, who needed to farm in order to survive. While there were rich and poor families, every man whose parents were both Greek was considered a citizen. Women were not considered citizens and had little rights, including the inability to participate in democracy. Women were seen as second-class citizens in comparison to men. Slavery in Greek culture was extremely prevalent. There is no accurate number, however, many historians believe that the amount of slaves could have been equal to the amount of free men. Slavery in this society was not racial. It was based on several factors, including socioeconomic status, birthplace, and whether or not you lived in a conquered territory. The city Dionysia, which was a cultural festival honoring Dionysus, the Greek god of theater, was a place in which people could watch dramas and comedies and explore themes and topics that might be hard to discuss out in the open. For example, many dramas performed there were seen by women and explored the role of women in their society. Many dramas featured women breaking out of their role as the caregiver and the mistress of the house, which was a major fear of Greek men at the time. This festival was extremely important in bringing up social issues that would otherwise be pushed aside due to their sensitive nature. There were many forms of government in the history of ancient Greece, but the first was the basileus form of government. A basileus, which was the equivalent of a king, would rule over certain areas of land, and the people living under his rule would pledge allegiance to him and serve him in the military in return for protection and monetary reimbursement from the king. This form of government was very popular and helped establish territory lines that would remain for centuries. Another prominent form of government was the oligarchy, which means rule of a few. This meant that instead of one basileus, there were a few men with strong political pull and massive financial backing who ruled over everyone else. This elite group of men usually made laws that favored them rather than laws that favored the good of the people. After the Peloponnesian War, an oligarchical government known as the 30 Tyrants took over. Athens, being completely depleted of all money and resources, was very vulnerable to this rule. This group of 30 men was vicious and created laws that favored pro-Spartan ideals rather than the needs of the Athenian people. Athens suffered extreme loss during this time, and a significant amount of people died due to beatings, torture, and starvation. This was a dark time in Athenian history, which was remedied by the formation of the democracy. Democracy in Athens was crucial to the formation of our government today, as well as other governments around the world. In Athenian democracy, each and every male and natural born citizen could participate in government despite their social status, wealth, or position. There was a sort of lottery system that picked males at random to participate in politics for 1 year, and then after that someone else would take their place. This was extremely important for the Athenians, who were previously underrepresented in lawmaking. There were flaws in this system, however. One major flaw was that men who were of a higher social standing could receive training from sophists, who were teachers who offered paid services in public speaking and rhetoric. These men would train younger men to, in a sense, make the worst argument seem better in order to sway public opinion. So, when these men participated in government, they were more likely to be taken seriously and were more likely to get their ideas passed. The sophists were heavily scrutinized. Many people, including the famous philosopher Socrates, believed that they were corrupting people by helping them to learn how to take advantage of the stupidity of others. In this video, you have learned about ancient Greek wars, technology, and social structure, all of which in some way contribute to our society today. By studying the way of life of these ancient Greeks, we gain a better understanding of our modern world.